It is exactly 6 a.m. East African time. Good morning. I trust you're well. We are broadcasting live from the headquarters of TV47 right here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. My name is George Maringa. Welcome to Morning Cafe, the only program in the entire nation and the region that serves you coffee. That serves you the program hotter than your coffee. Where are you watching us from? We want to begin by letting you know how the itinerary looks like. It is especially the D-Day for Kenya's Deputy President Geoffrey Rigathi Gachagua. At 59 years old, the gentleman is facing the Senate today in what will be the D-Day today. And now, just to let you know how the day looks like, especially on matters state of the nation, that will be forming the basis of our discussion this morning. We'll be having Geoffrey Ruku, the Member of Parliament for Mbeere North, as well as David Kiplagat, the Member of Parliament for Soy constituency, and Ishmael Nyaribo, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. That will be on State of the Nation this morning. That begins in just about half an hour or so. We shall be looking at the prospects and what exactly the last few days and what the options for the Deputy President are. We did see what the High Court had to say yesterday, in as much as another ruling is expected this morning, even as the Senate will continue with its sittings this morning as well. After the State of the Nation, come 8 a.m., we shall be having the impeachment conversation with my guests, who will be Kevin Osido, the Director of Governance Watch, as well as Silas Akiro, an advocate of the High Court. The reason we have this gentleman is to try and unpack everything for you. Remember, this is a day that we'll be seeing a lot of legal conversations, legal terminologies. What do you expect when they say they are going in camera? What does that mean? When they say that they are going to prosecute the issue, what exactly does this mean? Remember, the Senate will be acting as the court today in that impeachment proceedings as provided for by the Constitution of the Republic. To the headlines, we begin with the Star. Smart people read the Star. The headline this morning being how Gachagua bought Brothers Lavish Hotel. The witness, Njomo Mushira, confesses that Rigathi used him to acquire Olive Gardens Hotel. That is on page 4 to 5. The Daily Nation says that the fight of his life. The options for the Deputy President are fast dwindling as D-Day looms. That is from pages on the Daily Nation, page 6 to 7. We shall be getting deeper into that as well. Now, the Standard goes even extra. It gives us the clock ticking to the final decision, and that in the next 48 hours, the Deputy President will engage in a fight for his political life. That he rose from a one-term MP to the second highest seat in the land is no mean feat. However, he faces a permanent ban from public service should he face senators and fail to convince them to drop his impeachment. That is in the Standard newspaper. The People Daily this morning is talking about inside Ruto's plot to replace Gachagua, and that is a headline that you can find on page 5, where there is a bleak future as plans afoot to convene a special House sitting as early as Friday to consider Deputy President's successor in the likely event the Senate finds him guilty and endorses his impeachment. That is on page 5. Remember, Mashujaa Day will be coming up on Sunday, and it's where we usually see as a country the razzmatazz and all the hullabaloo that comes with power and who will be making their appearances there. Taifa Leo inasema kwamba Gachagua aona giza tena. Naibu Rais Rigathi Gachagua jana alishindwa tena jaribio lake la 26 la kutaka kuzima mchakato unaoendelea wa kumuondoa madarakani lilipokataliwa na mahakama. Mahakama Kuu jijini Nairobi ilikataa ombi la Bwana Gachagua la kuzuia Seneti kutojadili mchakato wa kumng'atua mamlakani kuanzia leo. Habari kamili ikiwa katika ukurasa wa pili. Now, the Business Daily, why Adani's power tariffs for homes remain a secret. We have been following and seeing this whole Adani conversation as has been discussed and, especially headlined by Business Daily, the conversation that has been especially on matters, the effects of Adani deal that you can find in the Business Daily newspaper. Let's go go international, and the region is, especially on the Daily Monitor. This is the headline: Inside Opposition Electoral Reforms. The Daily Monitor has obtained exclusive access to a string of bills that the immediate past leader of opposition in Parliament has drafted to, among others, restore presidential term limits, introduce the idea of a running mate during presidential polls, and split the legislative branch into two, while also reducing its size. That is on pages 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor. New Vision, the headline being government releases 16 trillion shillings, Uganda shillings, and Kampala land boss Balondemu charged over forgery. That is the headline on the New Vision in Uganda. Pale Tanzania, gazeti la Mwananchi, serikali yajibu vilio rafu za uandikishaji. Vyama vya upinzani vyadai kuna kasoro. Waziri Mchengerwa ajibu akitaka taarifa rasmi kwa hatua zaidi. Sababu vyama kushindwa kuweka mawakala, uhamasishaji waendelea. Hapo ni kwenye gazeti la Mwananchi. That is what is making headlines in the newspapers this morning. And now let's take you to today in history.
Today in history, October 16th is known as World Food Day, established in 1979 by the Food and Agriculture Organization FAO of the United Nations. This day focuses on the issues of hunger and food security, which are particularly pertinent across many African nations.
After what is today in history, let's bring you what how the weather looks like today. In Nairobi, the weather is currently at 15 degrees Celsius with precipitation chances of just about 2 millimeters. You can expect some few showers here and there, especially leading into the afternoon, with highs of 27 and lows of 14. The morning looks a bit calm until noon, but then from 1 p.m., between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m., there is a 30% to 50% chance of rain, and then at 4 p.m., a 40% chance of rain. That is how Nairobi is looking like. How is Kiambu? Let's check that out as well. It is 16 degrees Celsius at the moment, with highs of 27 and lows of 14, just like Nairobi. How about precipitation? There is 1 millimeter, so it's not as high as in the capital. So perhaps you could be expecting some showers between 1500 hours to 1700 hours. That is 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. The coastal city of Mombasa is quite warm this morning. It is 24 degrees Celsius with highs of 30 and lows of 23. There is no pretty much chance of precipitation as it were yesterday. So it is a bit, warm all the way leading, and it's going exponentially high from now all the way to the evening, with highs of 30 and lows of 23. How is it like in Vihiga? Vihiga is currently at 17 degrees, and in fact they have a high of 26 degrees Celsius. The precipitation is at 3.8 millimeters, so that is a very high chance of rain, and in fact there will be showers from just about 50 minutes from now, and in fact it's also raining, 70% chance of rain at 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., 50% and 40% chance of rain all the way to the afternoon between 12 and 2 p.m. There will be quite some dry weather looking thereabouts, but then all the way from 3 p.m. to early evening is high chances of rain, so you want to keep your umbrella with you. The weather in Kericho is at 14 degrees Celsius, where there is a high of 22 and lows of 14, and it is looking quite wet from 8 a.m. all the way to 5 p.m. The Friends family, Kenyans in Kericho can brace themselves for quite some rain, because it will be actually the highest of 5.1 millimeters. It's giving a lot of rain, as the Gen Z would say. That is how the weather is looking like. Let's now dive into the newspapers that are making headlines across the country and beyond. The dailies are reporting especially on matters, the impeachment of the deputy president, and each has taken their different angle. And we'll begin with the Star. Smart people read the Star, as they say, and the headline being how Gachagua bought brother's lavish hotel. Now, the witness, Njomo Mushira, confesses that Rigathi used him to acquire Olive Gardens Hotel, and that is in page 425. And in the background, you can see Olive Gardens Hotel that will be the part of the discussion that the senators will want to establish the facts. And the Olive Gardens Hotel in Nairobi that Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua allegedly bought from his brother's estate using a proxy is what the Star is reporting. And speculations of Kangata becoming DP grows after governor meets 30 MPs. That is on page 3. And the NADCO report also is highlighted on the Star newspaper. MPs scuttle plans to create opposition jobs for Kalonzo and other Azimio bigwigs. And also in politics, page 7, ODM not in government will field candidate to run against Ruto in 2027. According to the party chiefs. And there is also the full report on another Gachagua bid to hold the impeachment hearing in the Senate flops, and the senators will decide if he is guilty of the charges leveled against him. Today, he will appear and the charges will be read on him, and he will either plead guilty or not guilty. You can also find another detailed story regarding the legal minds, the battle of the titans, on page 5, battle of top councils, Orengo and Muite to face off in Rigathi impeachment. These are two gentlemen who have been are not stranger in the legal scenes because Gachagua's lead lawyer is the senior counsel Paul Muite, and National Assembly lawyer is Honorable Governor James Orengo. Of course, a lot of legal, terminologies and a lot of legal exchanges that we shall be seeing in the Senate today in the plenary as that impeachment hearing goes on. On matters football, the Star continues to report about Kenya must beat Zimbabwe and Namibia to have a chance. Is it an end of the road? The Star asks. It will be difficult for Stars to qualify for AFCON 2025, says coach Engin Furat. You can find that detailed report in the Star newspaper. Let's go to the Daily Nation, which is on the headline, the fight of his life. DP's options are fast dwindling as the D-Day looms. Today is the beginning of the 48 hours for the Deputy President, a defining moment in his career, in his political career. A defiant Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua faces an uphill battle for survival in the Senate today, even as the 3-judge bench appointed by the Chief Justice rules on his last-ditch bid to stop senators from proceeding with the impeachment case against him. Will his efforts bear fruit, or will he be too little, too late for the DP? That is in page 6 and 7 is the headline. And just to give you a brief, the Honorable Justice Chacha Mwita ruling yesterday ruled that even though the court had the jurisdiction to determine the petition, Parliament ought to be allowed to run its course. In his words, quote, there should be a delicate balance in respective mandates of different arms of government. Courts should strive to achieve the balance and respect what Parliament is constitutionally required to discharge. On page 10, according to PS Harry Kimtai, state will foot a 30 billion shillings bill that NHIF owes to hospitals. Remember, we are migrating to SHA, and there has been that conversation over the pending bills left by the National Health Insurance Fund. That is, the government has committed to settle the 30 billion owed to hospitals by NHIF as part of the ongoing transition to a social health insurance fund. On matters education, public university workers yesterday issued a strike notice accusing the government of failing to honor the return to work formula. Those are stories that you can find in the Daily Nation. It also proceeds to talk about the court rejecting the DPP bid to drop Adani's case. And yesterday, Renson Ingonga, the Director of Public Prosecutions, made an oral application to Anti-Corruption Court Magistrate Harrison Barasa, asking him to end the case and claiming he had encountered some difficulties in tracing witnesses. That is a story you can find in the Daily Nation. On matters the impeachment, the Daily Nation continues to speak about how split in Ruto Raila comes saved the county boss, that is Kericho Governor Mutai. And of course, the main story, page 6 to 7, a showdown, Gachagua's date with fate. The embattled DP faces his accusers in the Senate as he fights 11 charges brought against him in a bid to remove him from office. And you've been hearing from what pundits and the legal minds have had to say. Should the DP be found guilty in one charge, it then makes him guilty of all, and that will be a defining moment for the deputy president as we wait to see the decision that the Senate will take. Another strike looms in the back page of the Daily Nation. Another strike looms as Wasu and Kusu issue strike notice. This is after the government was accused of failing to honor the agreement signed weeks ago. That is what you'll find in the Daily Nation. To the Standard newspaper that, as I was saying earlier on, has gone extra and decided to even give us, a ticking clock, because they say, the time there are 47 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds is the timeline for the deputy president since we crossed over to today, Wednesday. He will have 48 hours, and the time, of course, has gone lower, and that in the next 48 hours, the deputy president will engage in a second highest, rather in a fight for his political life. Now, the events of today is that the National Assembly, MPs and lawyers will prosecute their case against the deputy president. They will call witnesses and rebut claims in his defense. Tomorrow, the deputy president and his team will defend their case, after which the senators will vote to uphold or throw out the impeachment. Now, the hurdles that the deputy president is facing is that Justice Chacha Mwita yesterday refused to hold the process. However, today morning, a 3-judge bench will pronounce itself on the same, and an alleged buyer of one of the properties has thrown a spanner in the works, swearing the property was bought on Gachagua's behalf. That is quite a mountain of evidence that we shall be waiting to see. Now, the Standard continues to report on page 2 about, Kenyans wait with bated breath as Adani likely to raise electricity bills. By the way, have you been experiencing the influx, or rather the hike in the consumption of the electricity tokens in your house? We'd also love to hear from you. Our SMS line 22047. You can find us on X, formerly Twitter, at TV47 News. I am at George Maringa _ Use the hashtag Morning Cafe. Kenyans wait with bated breath as Adani likely to raise the electricity bills. Also on matters NHIF, SHA, that the Ministry has said, the State Department has said, it will clear the hospital's debt. That is a story you can find on page 3. And then page 4, the ball set rolling as DP Geoffrey Gachagua will put up defense in the trial chamber. And just a few highlights is that the embattled DP to get a chance to defend himself in the Senate, and Gachagua allies present a damning affidavit in Parliament. That is among that's among the stories that the Standard newspaper is reporting about, and also goes to continue to talk about the DP's darkest and nerve-wracking 48 hours on the cross. He suffered a blow in court yesterday, and of course a three-judge bench will decide on a similar request this morning. His legal team facing a hurdle to be able to prove his innocence before the Senate. Now, on matters impeachment, the Standard is reporting that Ruto's headache in picking deputy if Gachagua is sent packing, and there is all the options from Interior CS Kithure Kindiki, there is Anne Waiguru, Kirinyaga Governor Gladys Wanga of Homa Bay County, just that analysis that you can find in the Standard newspaper. It is also reporting that delegates seek clarity on Raila Ruto ties. You can find on page 9, as Raila denies ODM is part of the Kenya Kwanza government and insists party is still in Azimio. And in the sports department, or segment if you wish, Nigeria refused to play in Libya as Algeria and Cameroon qualify. Let's see what the other dailies have to talk about. And it is People Daily. Inside Ruto's plot to replace Gachagua, a bleak future for the DP as plans afoot to convene a special house sitting as early as Friday to consider Deputy President's successor in the likely event that the Senate finds him guilty and endorses his impeachment. Taifa Leo inazungumzia kuhusu Gachagua aona giza tena, na shilingi bilioni 7 pia za raia hatarini kunywa maji, ambapo DPP ananuia kuondoa mashtaka ya ufisadi dhidi ya mfanyi biashara Devki. Spika kotini kupinga MCA kumtimua spika wa Nyamira kunradhi Enoch Okera pinga kutimuliwa kwake na madiwani. Na kimataifa ni kwamba naibu rais, makamu wa rais wa Marekani Kamala Harris adai Trump kuwa tishio kwa Marekani. Alikuwa akirejelea tamko la Trump kuwa Amerika ina maadui ndani yake, akilenga watu weusi. Taarifa kamili katika ukurasa wa 8. Why Adani's power tariffs for homes remain a secret. The Ketraco terms calls for changes disclosure premature. Also, there is expected annual revenues from deal to be put at 21.2 billion Kenya shillings. And Adani's proposal, according to Business Daily, proposal versus agreed deal with Ketraco, is that the total project cost will be, from the current 229 billion shillings from the revised offer of 21 billion shillings. That is 8.1 billion shillings. The Daily Monitor talks about, the economy posts positive results despite negative predictions in Uganda, and there is a 6.6%, in second quarter of the year. Between April and June, the economy expanded by 6.6%. Apparently, according to the Daily Monitor, 3 in 10 Ugandans go without food daily. That is a story you can find on page 2. There is a tribute on page 3 for Sekade, the bishop who taught self-reliance. And then on page 6, the census results. PWDs have rejected the erroneous data. That is information and stories you can find in page 6 of the Daily or of the Monitor. In New Vision, pensioners, contractors get lion's share of quarter 2. That is according to New Vision, page 3 of that newspaper. And also in sports, by the way, Uganda edges closer to AFCON qualification. They're talking about that as well. Bishop Balagade, a visionary leader, eulogized. Details on page 10. And then on accountability matters, State House Entebbe has, probed EC officials. And Museveni passes out 203 officer cadets are among the details you can find in New Vision of the neighboring country Uganda. Mwananchi yazidi kuzungumzia swala la serikali kujibu vilio rafu za uandikishaji. Vilevile kuna sababu ya thamani ya shilingi, akiba ya dola kuimarika. Kiasi cha fedha za kigeni kilichoongezeka hadi Septemba kutoka dola bilioni 5.34 za Marekani Juni mwaka huu. Habari, taarifa kamili ukurasa wa 6. The Citizen talks about board forecasts a further easing of forex crunch. The central bank anticipates further improvements in foreign exchange inflows driven by high global prices, gold prices, increased tourism and robust exports of crops such as cashew nuts, tobacco and coffee. Full story on page 2. Now, $5.4 billion is the foreign exchange reserves, increased to $5.41 billion by the end of September, up from $5.34 billion in June, according to the board's latest monetary policy report. That is what you can find in the Citizen. Full details in the Citizen. And then the state response to concerns about local government polls. That is also a story you can find in the Citizen in Dar es Salaam. Let's look at the caricatures. So starting with the Daily Nation, I believe that is it. This is, I think, on the Standard, I think, by Harry. It talks about that this is the Standard. Yes, answer the question truthfully. Do you have more sports than the rest of us? Talking about how they are crucifying the, gentleman who will be presenting himself. It is a case of who has more sports than the other. Answer the question truthfully. Why do you have more sports than the rest of us? Remember, there is at the center of this impeachment is that issue of assets. The assets that the Deputy President has acquired over time, and he has defended himself, saying even before he went into government, he still had money. He did not go in broke. This is the Nation. Over to you. The Senate is what the judiciary has thrown the baton back to the Senate. As the Senate, this is what used to be used as the tool for hanging whoever was found guilty in the impeachment proceedings. And you can see right there a cartoon image of the Senate Speaker Amason Kingi as they look at what will be the fate of the Deputy President, and the judiciary has thrown the ball back to the Senate and walked away. That is what you will find there. And this also continues to talk about, I learned everything from my boss, that's why I am here. This is, of course, the cartoon right there. We can see from this newspaper, and of course this is a depiction of what the Deputy President was defending himself when he went before the National Assembly last week, and he said that everything he is doing he has learned from his boss. That's why he is here, and he was saying even some accusations are quite unfair. Let's now take a look at the traffic situation in the country, in the capital, Nairobi, to be specific. It is exactly 6:30 a.m. and it is looking, this is Jogoo Road, the usual culprit, as usually call it. This stretch between Likoni Road and Jogoo Road is looking quite red, but the rest of the areas are green. And when we come to this other area of Wangu Avenue, there is also quite some huge traffic. It's quite red over there. But let's look at the other side of Outer Ring Road. Outer Ring Road is clear, but the intersection of Manyanja Road and Outer Ring Road is quite heavy, and then Donholm as well. You can see it is quite heavy over there. Let's come to the other area of thick, Haile Selassie Avenue. You can see this area, between Langata Road all the way this route joining you to Haile Selassie and Nairobi Expressway as well is looking quite red. Let's look at other areas, of this capital and what you need to know before you make your way. Ngong Road is not on the red as other times. It's actually just cleared right now, all the way to Junction Mall. But again, Naivasha Road and Kikuyu Road, there is quite some heavy traffic over there. That is the current situation in Nairobi. Let's look at Southern Bypass. The Southern Bypass is looking quite green all the way to Uhuru Gardens, and that as well. I am looking for another area to bring you this traffic update. This area of Thika Road is looking, not bad at all, the entire of it, apart from the Mwiki area as you come into Kasarani, as we head into the other sections of, Outer Ring. Just in the exits is where you'll find traffic. But now, all the way from KCA to Muthaiga Square is looking quite heavy. All the way from KCA to Muthaiga Square, because of the bottlenecks over there, you can be sure to find some traffic. So if you have some Panya routes to explore, you can go ahead and either delay your exit from home or use an alternative or wait until it is clear. This is the current situation on Thika Road. We have a lot coming up this morning, even as we look at the issues of concern and the stories making headlines this morning in the dailies and State of the Nation coming up. In just a short while, we'll be having Geoffrey Roko, the Member of Parliament for Mbeere North, David Kiplagat, MP for Soy, and Ishmael Nyaribo, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, to look at the impeachment and what the day portends, especially on matters State of the Nation. You're watching Morning Cafe with me, George Maringa. On the socials, you can find me at George Maringa _. You can post also to TV47 at TV47 News. Our SMS line will be on your screens shortly, as well as our WhatsApp numbers. We look forward to hearing from you and engaging you, especially on matters State of the Nation. And then later on, we shall be having that important conversation on DP Gachagua impeachment. We'd also like to engage you on that. By the way, do you understand the processes and the procedures that will be taking place in the Senate this morning? Go ahead and field your questions to our guests this morning. Kevin Osido, who is the Director of Governance Watch, as well as Silas Akiro, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Those will be the guests on matters, the impeachment of Gachagua. But then, before we do that, we'll have State of the Nation coming up in just a short while. We'll be back shortly after this short commercial break. My name is George Maringa. Do stay with us.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Welcome back. You're watching a Morning Cafe. Where are you watching us from? My name is George Maringa. Go ahead and engage us on our socials at TV47 News or at George Maringa _ across the socials. Our SMS line 22047. The WhatsApp number will also be on your screens shortly. Let's address matters state of the nation on such a heavy day, D-Day for the Deputy President as he faces his accusers. And the Senate will today be sitting in the plenary to be able to prosecute the impeachment motion against it. And joining me this morning is David Kiplagat, Member of Parliament for Soy constituency. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and morning to our viewers.
Good morning to you. We shall also be joined by our guests later on, and I'll be introducing them in a short while as the show continues. Mheshimiwa, the National Assembly has thrown the weight and actually thrown the responsibility much per se to the Senate. Okay. Why is it that it is looking like a game of blame game where the National Assembly says, as guests did our part, as it is supposed to be, it's now up to the Senate? Was it not fair and right for the National Assembly to equally just listen and vote in a manner that it did not seem to have influence, as some have argued.
Okay, thank you. I don't know where you are getting the notion that there were influence.
Yes. Well, the DP has alluded to that.
Okay, you know that is the defense side, and also in terms of the prosecution side, will have to be listened to, and
yes.
the balance of scale will carry the day.
Yeah.
But having said that, maybe it is very clear that we let Kenyans understand about the impeachment process. The impeachment process is governed by our Constitution 2010, that is Article 150 and Article 145, and also some pronouncements that the Supreme Court have made in terms of public participation.
Yes.
If you look critically at the two articles that govern the impeachment of the president and the deputy president, you will find out that the initiators is the National Assembly. But now where the trial, the quasi-judicial trial happens in the Senate, the National Assembly just need to believe and satisfied that the grounds that are being tabled meets the threshold as per the Article 150 and 145. But the actual trial where the defense will actually fight for their lives, and also whoever came up with the motion from the National Assembly will put up their case. So it is very important that if you look critically at what we did at the National Assembly, we went beyond the call of duty. That is, we went for public participation, which is not defined in those articles. And you will also realize our 2010 Constitution, we borrowed heavily from the American Constitution, and all of us have been in this space where the Americans, the Senate, have undergone impeachment of their president, and you will find out that nowhere is stated that public participation needs to be done. But all the same, just as a cautionary measure, we say that since there have been in various other rulings from the Supreme Court that not necessarily touches on those Article 150 and 145, we said as a cautionary measure, let us also go for public participation, so that we could be able to hear what the one age was saying. And the constraint in terms of that public participation was actually the time frame that has been set for the special motion, which is 7 days. So although you can argue there is the reasonable notice, you also need to constrain depending on the time that is given for such a special motion to be taken. So within that time frame, we were able to conduct a very vibrant public participation, and the outcome were over 60% of Kenyans said that they were supportive of the motion, and around 39% said that they were not supportive of the motion. So having said that, we also went beyond the call of duty to invite the deputy president so that we can listen to him, we can listen to his defense before we took the final vote. And if you look at the final vote, it was overwhelming. Although we only required around 233 members of National Assembly to pass the motion, we managed to get around 282, which was overwhelming. And if I were the advisor of the deputy president, which I have not, and I might be a bit young in politics to advise him, but all the same, if I exercise my mind on it, I would have advised him that at that point, he needed to do the honorable thing to resign, not on anything, but even in terms of the working relationship with the president, because as defined by our constitution, the deputy president is the principal assistant of the president. And given that you are the principal assistant, then the last time I was here, I said that if you are no longer in working terms with whoever you are assisting, why should you insist that you need to remain in that seat to assist? You know, it's like you have your PA, and things are falling apart with your PA. Even for conscience sake, it befalls upon at that point to take the higher call and just to resign. And you know, impeachment. Impeachment is not just the word impeachment. It comes with consequences. It comes with consequences that if you contemplate resigning and the consequences of impeachment, I think you will take the former, because in impeachment, I can tell you, you cannot even vie for the chairman of a kettle dip in Mathira. It will be very difficult. It will be very difficult. Yeah, it will be very difficult. So if he really didn't want his political star to be buried until maybe his generations will come to take over him, if he still has that vision to still be in politics, I could advise him respectfully to take the higher call and resign. And I don't know at the state as it is now, because the trial is starting today. I don't know whether that option is still there. But in Kenya, we know all of us are gentlemen. If we can make truth and give him room to resign before maybe before around noon, it will save us a lot of drama and also save his skin from being thrown to oblivion. And of course, from where I'm sitting, the deputy president will be impeached.
When you've spoken with a lot of confidence. Let me, we'll come back to that, but let me take you back to this point. You've quoted Chinua Achebe's book, Things Fall Apart. If things fall apart between you and your principal assistant, what are the quarters saying? What are the whispers? What could have led to this rift?
I think, you know, from my own observation, is that the deputy president, I think, overvalued himself beyond the boss. And if I go to the Nyayo era, before the 2010 constitution, maybe before even then, if you define the deputy president, he's basically the vice president that we knew.
Okay.
And the vice president that we knew, it was an appointee of the president, and the president could dismiss anytime. You remember the famous Moise, if I quote him, during he stayed like for 1.5 years without a vice president, and where he finally did a roadside declaration and said that if the number of sifurias or rugalis are going to increase, may I now give you Saitoti as the vice president, if that one will suffix. That one tells you the drafters of the constitution erred in making the process of appointment of the deputy president and the sacking of the deputy president a bit difficult. What we are just undergoing is actually as per the dictates of the 2010 constitution. Otherwise, this thing could have been done by the president a long time ago, by just relieving the duties of the vice president and appointing another. So I also propose that maybe after this process we need to relook at our 2010 constitution so that we can realign it with our behaviors that we have seen. Currently, the 2010 constitution politically is not serving us the way we are supposed to be serving us. You see the necessity in terms of getting the position of the deputy president not being defined the way it is. It should be appointed when the cabinet is being appointed, and should be relieved like just the way a cabinet minister is going to be, a cabinet CS is going to be relieved. Secondly, we have the position of the prime minister, but that we have been trying to create outside the 2010 constitution, which needs to be enshrined. We have the issues of always you can call it the broad-based, we can call it the handshake. Always number two, the elections in Kenya are very close. That tells you the 50% plus one, if not checked, also might run this country into instability. So I dare also say that maybe we need to remove that 50 plus one and just let the popular candidate be the winner. And then the number two should also get something, because at the end of the day they'll always fight. They'll be in the streets, either through the Sufuria's demonstrations in the streets, or through all means, to make sure also they are also part of government. So if we can actually accommodate them in the amended constitution, so that then number two also gets something in government and things move. So I believe the situation that we are currently is as a result of the drafters of the constitution, which I think they didn't read the mind of Kenyans. But having said that, I think if you are a vice president, I used to say that I used to see during Moi's time, when the president is there, when you are addressing the nation, to invite the president, you don't spend more than a minute or 30 seconds. You just say that, Your Excellency, watu wako wanakupenda, karibu wahutubie, and it ends there.
There's someone who has said, you know, that it appears that the charge and the offense for the deputy president is hurting people's feelings. We'll get to that. But looking at, you know, the Executive Order number 2 of 2023, it went ahead to establish, you know, to stipulate the office of the deputy president by even appointing principal secretaries, affairs of the deputy president. There is Dr. Idris. There is also Teresia M. Malokwe, PS, in the office of the deputy president. And then, you know, went ahead to issue key offices and institutions, International Development Partners Coordination Unit, Nairobi Rivers Commission, Intergovernment, IBEC, of course that is in the Constitution, Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, and then mandate of the office R8. And at this point, we want to welcome Ishmael Nyaribo, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Welcome, Ishmael, to the discussion on the state of the nation. When you look at, we'll come to Ishmael, but Mheshimiwa, before you cross over to Ishmael, there is the issue of this executive order and the mandate it stipulated. The president was seen as, you know, kind enough to stipulate the responsibilities of his deputy and how he envisioned his deputy to be. Could it be that the fact that the deputy overstepped this mandate, it was more very official than political? Do you think there was a misunderstanding, in terms of someone understanding their roles?
I think the president's mind was very clear at the inception on how he wanted the deputy president to really assist him to run government. And that's why in that executive order number 1, the duties of the deputy president were well enshrined. And the current problems that we have is basically 90% is not as a result of that executive order. 90% is as a result of how the deputy president has carried himself in terms of in the process of trying to create the kingpinship in Mount Kenya. He didn't carry that dictates of the office of the presidency, which is a symbol of national unity. So it was like every day you are talking about shares, you are talking about Murima, you are talking about, until people lose focus as, are you still the deputy president, or you are the regional king or the regional kingpin of a certain area. Look at even when we had these Gen Z's problems. When we had this Gen Z's problem, I think the deputy president went overboard. Investigations are there, and they are still ongoing as to how both parties within and without actually fueled the Gen Z's protest. And so immediately when we went to State House to withdraw the Finance Bill 2024, and the president addressed the nation, then 30 minutes after, the deputy president also calls another State of the Nation address in Mombasa, and also now when flabbergasted and went overboard to say other things that also even borders on the confidentiality of the National Security Council. So at that state, let us leave alone on the roles that he had been saying. At that state, you can see there was an issue of now trying to create a co-presidency within the Republic of Kenya, which the Constitution does not envisage. Okay. I think that is where the problems really started.
Ishmael, Mheshimiwa here, has talked about a few things, and I want to pick your mind, especially from the legal front. The standard is, the headline is "The clock ticks to final decision." There is also the conversation of the issue of resigning. Mheshimiwa here has issued some advice to the DP to resign.
Yeah, very calculated advice.
Very calculated advice.
And it's political, I'm sure. You see, for me, George,
what is the window for resignation even in the first place? Can he resign at this point?
You see, he has been impeached at the National Assembly, but you see, it is not conclusive until now the Senate tries him factually and charge by charge. That is when actually if the Senate impeaches him, that's then now when it goes down and the same will be gazetted and all that, then he cannot run for office after that. But yes, if he decides to resign now, he might save himself. But why are we going there? You know, Maringa, regarding Gachagua, is one person. It's just an individual, isn't it? In the country, yes, he's holding a very sensitive and a big office, but it's just one individual. The country is not cracking. The country is not falling. If he doesn't resign and the Senate impeaches him, there's honestly nothing much that will happen. You know, people try to make it look like the country is going to have some crack between Rift Valley and the east and the west of Rift Valley. No, the country is not going to crack. We have been here before, and I said it elsewhere, that if you remember in 2017, Raila Odinga made sure that no government operations will happen in Nyanza, and he successfully stopped. I mean, even governments, you know, entering counties like, you know, Homa Bay, Migori, it was impossible. So, but still we came out of that. The reasons for that, George, is we as Kenyans are extremely in love with peace. By the way, if there's anything we all like, it's to be peaceful. When we see things getting out of hand, many Kenyans do not agree. When you look, I mean, you can assess analysts and you know, economics, historians. People want to go to their daily affairs. By the way, apart from what we are doing here, analyzing and trying to inform your viewers that this is what's going on, many people are only worried that the divisions between the president and his deputy might plunge us into some form of civil strife and divisions, which then will deny us the peace. But they are not so worried if Rigathi Gachagua, you know, survives this impeachment. They are not so worried if he's impeached, really. There will be another person from Kenya again, nominated by the president, approved by National Assembly, and life will move on. But there's something I heard Honorable Kiplagat mention, and I just want to weigh into that. The reasons why we, in the current constitution, don't allow the president to pick a deputy is because the writers of the constitution, looking at the history from where we have come from, did not want the head of state to have unfettered power to actually pick his deputy. That is what we want as Kenyans. Our sovereignty is such that we want, when we elect the president, we also elect with him his deputy, so that he doesn't have this unfettered power again to dismiss him. And so now what is going to happen, and what is happening in Gachagua's case actually, they are using backdoor methods to try to remove him and then hire a new deputy without involving the people. And I said elsewhere, let us then, if the deputy is impeached, why can't we have the majority parties come together and propose a person? Of course, the Constitution, I agree, the Constitution says the deputy will propose. But the deputy is not stopped by the Constitution from requesting the majority parties to suggest a name, so that the name does not necessarily come from his wishful, you know, from his own whimsical feelings or liking, but it comes from the people. And the majority parties should be allowed to propose those names. They give to the president, and then the president picks, and then, of course, goes to Parliament for approval. So I think we are trying to distort the Constitution. Having said we don't want the president to be hiring and firing his deputy at will, that is what is in the Constitution. We intended to have them elected as a pair. Now, we have found a way of, you know, amassing majority. By the way, that majority is fake. If you ask me, and this case is in court, I think coming in November for hearing, what is majority? After elections, who had the majority? And how did the majority then shift again, come to the ruling coalition? So those are very sticky issues that actually must be assessed in the end of the day. But the whole intention of this country is that the head of state should not have power to hire and fire his deputy.
Absolutely. That's why let's take a break as we simmer on these you know, points that my guests this morning are talking about. Are you watching Morning Cafe with me, George Maringa? My guests being David Kiplagat, member of Parliament Soy constituency, Ishmael Nyaribo, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. A heavy day, D-Day for the Deputy President as we look at that matter on the State of the Nation this morning. We are taking a short break. Keep your feedback coming, and just to appreciate our viewer right here, just briefly, if the director can allow me, Anthony Obindi saying you're watching from Lugari, Mukuyu. I am locked. Thank you so much, Anthony, for watching. And of course, we invite your feedback as well. We are taking a short break. When we come back, the conversation continues.
Hey there, friends! Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated, and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. In case you're joining us, this is State of the Nation on Morning Cafe with me, George Maringa. On the socials, we are at TV47 News. I am at George Maringa _. Use the hashtag Morning Cafe for us to be able to track your feedback. Our SMS number is on your screen shortly. The WhatsApp number will also be on your screen. On State of the Nation this morning, we're privileged to have David Kiplagat, MP for Soy constituency, as well as Ishmael Nyaribo, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Mheshimiwa, Ishmael has pretty much spoken about the pragmatic issues as they were. Politically speaking, what then would be the issue that, as parliamentarians, when you were passing that, voting, with the highest majority to that impeachment, what is that one thing that perhaps stuck out even for you as a legislator for your political camp that would be the main reason to send the DP packing?
I think the main reason is what happened during the, first of all, in terms of this idea of presidency as a symbol of national unity.
Okay.
That one he fails totally. Secondly, on the Gen Z's demonstration and the aftermath after that, because there are evidential information that his office were, in terms of facilitation of the Gen Z's demonstration, they were heavily involved. Secondly, immediately when now the country was in a kind of an instability, we all, as the ruling coalition, Kenya Kwanza coalition, we came together to discuss how do we go forward from here. He was missing from that space. And then after the president gave the nation's address, he decided to give his in Mombasa, and he went a bit ballistic. So if you look at those incidents alone, you know, an impeachment process, you don't need a lot of grounds. You just even need one. So on those two alone, I think that borders on gross misconduct. It borders on the principles of governance as enshrined in Article 10, and collective responsibility and confidentiality for the National Security Council. Okay. So those two alone, the others are just backups to do, but those two alone were actually the low side.
Yeah. And you know, that's why I think, by the way, it can easily fail in the Senate. If what Mheshimiwa is saying, if everyone like in the Senate were to use this as the standard rule measure, you know, this constitution and our country gives our people freedom of expression. And here is the deputy president who definitely must express himself. And a lot of things, by the way, is really about the emphasis and interpretation you give them. So is the deputy president supposed to keep quiet when the country has been attacked to the level that people storm parliament? Now, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is the deputy president wrong to criticize national institutions when he comes on air and says the reasons why we're having, even if they say he planned, you know, he planned for, like, he sponsored the Gen Z protests, for example. Is the Secret Service not supposed to be aware that the deputy president beforehand, I mean, you cannot sit with information, then wait for somebody to cause harm and damage to the country, and then say, I had this intelligence, but I decided I don't want to share it with anyone, or like, I shared it with somebody, but we wanted to see how far he can go. This is wrong. I mean, the truth is, we don't have any monster in form of a state institution or a government institution. Any institution really that is funded by the public money can be criticized, and fairly so. I mean, without necessarily trying to destroy it. Criticizing a leader that, oh, the way you are, you look like this, you look like that, you have done this to us, you have not done this to us. These are all, you know, normal and civil criticism. So, to say that the deputy president came out and probably attacked the president, I don't think that is fair. In fact, he was very protective of the president, but very, you know, attacked the Secret Service, you know, the police, you know, investigations. He was like, how come you didn't know, and you put the president in this level of embarrassment? So I think we need to demystify this monster notion that there is a public institution that is like totally, you know, untouchable, and that's where the problem is. Now, lastly then, now the deputy president is alleged to have probably sponsored, you know, they have repeated this theory a lot, but we know from the president's mouth that it was Ford Foundation that that sponsored these skirmishes, and then later on he has gone to the Ford Foundation and he has made peace with them. Now he has come back, I think, then now to find reason now to fight with his deputy on other grounds. The truth of the matter, Maringa, is that the grouping of people around the president do not like anybody who is more powerful than they are. In fact, it is not that Gachagua is more powerful than the president, neither was he trying to be more powerful than the president. The major problem is the cartel around the president are totally not amused with how the deputy president goes about his business, because he does not seem to go behind them. he is ahead of the cartel and is standing right next to the president. And I think this is, and then when now it touches on business and the deals that these people cut at that high level, I think that is why they actually decided we must do away with this guy because he's not helping us. But in terms of, for example, I mean, we have, let me tell you, we have now gone into what he did to his brother, for example, the family and all that. You see, until and unless you bring that family to the Senate and have them testify, it will just be hot air. I mean, you can say, where is the will? I have heard people now mention where, but where is the will? That is the question. So unless you bring it to the Senate, you bring the widow to the Senate, you bring the children, the nephews and nieces of Gachagua to the Senate, and I am not sure if they come from Mount Kenya, they will want to appear in the Senate anyway. So I think we should actually tell the country the truth. We don't like Gachagua. We may not hate him. I mean, I'm talking in terms of how the politicians are portraying Gachagua. Just say we don't like him and we don't want him in the political scene. But in terms of whether he has committed crimes, he has, whether you can prove that he has actually abused the local or international law, it will be something we want to see today at the Senate and then see whether he can actually be impeached on those grounds.
As you come in, you know, he said, the DP said he learned it from his boss. The DP in his defense, before you parliamentarians, he said a lot of the things he was doing, he learned them from his boss.
No, you cannot, you know, that one is not actually a defense. You cannot say that I also stole a chicken because my boss stole one. You know?
Okay.
You know, that one will be impeaching yourself or accepting culpability. So having said that, I think let us understand the process.
Okay.
There are 11 grounds that National Assembly have laid and have passed. It is now upon the Senate to look at each ground individually and analyze both the defense and also the prosecution and look at the witnesses. And at the end of the day, they will be able to shift. They will be able to determine which grounds don't hold any water. They will be able to determine which grounds they are facts, because it is Senate is about facts. So let us not jump the gun as if the dossier that has been taken to the Senate is like just hot air. No. What we need to do, let us wait. Today, the prosecution and also the defense will put forward their case. Point by point, facts will be tabled, evidence will be tabled, witnesses will be called in, and at the end of the day, by tomorrow at 7, we will have known actually what we are alleging, whether it is true or false. So let us not at this hour say that those allegations are just fabricated allegations just to achieve an end in itself. Let us wait for the trial to begin.
But honestly, Mheshimiwa, if you look at how you handled the Deputy President in Parliament, I mean, I saw the Speaker, you know, when he was giving everybody else who is supporting the motion, he gave them all the time. He could have 5 minutes, 2 minutes, you know, like that. And there was a member of Parliament, I've forgotten his name, is Mulu or Kamulu, and he was speaking and he was against it. And every time, point of information, point of order speakers, and the Speaker actually allows points of order. And then when he comes back to talk, I was counting, he has not actually spoken for 1 full minute. Then when he comes later after such interruption, then the Speaker is saying, your time is up. I mean, I was wondering, is the Speaker actually aware that this is being televised? So even if I am Gachagua and I go to the Senate, and I say honestly, my people are not given a moment to, you know, under the Constitution of Kenya, Article 50, an accused is the person, is the victim, is the issue here, must be given ample time, both for preparation of his case and also for after preparation, also enough time to express himself. So even that alone. And then again, Maringa, you know, by the way, we must be honest with our country, surely. Mheshimiwa, you know, the Deputy President then, who is now the head of state, was so mistreated by the former regime that he came out and said, this pain is too bad, I cannot allow somebody under me to undergo this. So these cosmetic allegations against the deputy president, if Honorable William Ruto, the head of state, wanted, he would simply come and say, look here, gentlemen, I know so much, but I will still protect this guy just because of the pain I went through. So I will just protect him, let him sit there. Please don't disturb him. He would be a more than a greater person in this country. But now he has taken his deputy through that same route he was taken through. So at what point is the country going to heal? At what point are we going to embrace forgiveness and the love for our country if we continue repeating what has happened? I mean, this happened to Moi.
Yeah.
Now it happened to William Ruto. Now it is happening to DP Gachagua. What is the end to this? When can we stop this?
I think it's important.
With the loud silence the president has made.
It's important, Wakili, we also be factual.
Okay.
Impeachment process is actually initiated at the National Assembly. It is not initiated by the president. So let us leave the president out of this impeachment process because he plays no role. Secondly, we also need to lay facts. National Assembly, the final verdict lies in numbers. It doesn't lie in whatever somebody says during the flow of or during the debate. Everybody will have the vote, and that vote is the one that will talk. So the 282 members of National Assembly who voted for the impeachment of the deputy president, that is what carries the day in that debate. Whether somebody says he stole my ex or he did what, or I don't like his face, or I don't want, that doesn't contribute in the final vote. The final vote is what is taken to the Senate. Secondly, let us also be factual. National Assembly, in terms of the prosecution, because this is a trial, in terms of the prosecution, is like the DPP. And the Senate is like the court. The High Court for that matter. So us, we weren't looking so much at the defense. We weren't looking so much at what we say. What we were looking at is whether the grounds that have been tabled, we had reasons to believe, just reasons to believe that it actually made the impeachment threshold as enshrined in Article 150. And once we had reasons to believe, and 282 members had reasons to believe that this case has some grounds or has some grounds for it to be taken to trial. So as DPP, we now write the letter to arrest the witness, to arrest the defendant and take him to court. And now he's appearing in court today. So it's upon him now to defend himself. So let us not give a lot of weight as to what happened in the National Assembly when we were discussing. We can even discuss anything in this world, but at the end of the day, that vote is the one that carries the day. And it is enshrined that it has to be 2/3. And 2/3 is 233. We even went up to 282.
Okay.
So for 282 members to believe that the deputy president should be impeached, I think Kenyans need to ask themselves what went wrong.
Is it, you know, someone has argued, and it's the former vice president, before you come to Ishmael, the former vice president has argued that this parliament actually stands impeached by Kenyans, and therefore, you know, you cannot impeach someone when Kenyans have, you know, exercised Article 1. What do you make of this type of argument where Parliament did not have the, you know, the proper standing to be able to prosecute this issue, as it were?
I think those I call now clandestine listening.
Okay.
Because for sure, you know, when you say that Parliament stands impeached, when was the impeachment? When, you know, the Constitution is, if you which action has happened for you to say that Parliament stands impeached? I think. Let's excuse the former vice president. I think he's becoming also a bit old, and I will advise him he needs to pass the baton to whoever in the Ukambani region to take up, because the moment he appears in these TV stations trying to articulate issues, maybe I can stop there. I don't want to use unpalatable terms.
Ishmael, what is that view from Senior Counsel Kalonzo Musyoka that Parliament is impeached? Is it impeached?
You see, it's the same thing Mheshimiwa is saying, that the standard of the threshold for Parliament confirming charges and then sending them to the Senate. It's the same thing. I mean, the threshold for us to say that the Parliament was impeached is actually based on the fact that they were literally smoked out of Parliament. I mean, they were in Parliament, but they were running away in ambulances. And you don't have to be offended, Mheshimiwa.
Point of order. Yeah. May I state categorically? Yeah. We had finished the order of the day.
Okay.
We had even adjourned Parliament. So, the Parliament wasn't disrupted. We had adjourned, we were just taking food. And the symbol of authority in Parliament, the mess, was the National Assembly was adjourned. The mess was picked and taken to the Sergeant at Arms and kept there.
However,
the other thing that was being shown was just a flower at the reception, just a model.
Okay. So, my point is, and this is why we have a country where actually we can go around an issue without getting an answer in terms of, look, when police arrest you, they very quickly rush you to court. An arrest must be based on information, and the information must be correct information. And the police, before actually arresting and taking you to the court, must be satisfied that the information given is correct. That's why I'm saying that the discussion and debate in National Parliament before a vote is called is extremely important, because it informs some of the members of Parliament who may not have actually appraised themselves of the charges in the charge sheet, if I may use the word charge sheet, so that the allegations are clarified and crystallized for the members of Parliament to understand. And that is why they actually call for a debate, a discussion of an issue before a vote. So you cannot say that as long as 282 members will come up and vote, it does not matter the discussions and the time given to the Deputy President to defend himself and present his case. And that also means that the Senate would be interested to know whether did the National Assembly understand the gravity of the charges, number one. Did they prove that these charges actually exist? Forget about whether they were really done. Do these charges exist? Is the information before the National Assembly correct and factual? All these things are things that must be considered by the Senate. And of course, as I said, Maringa, before, the Senate is extremely mature. You have seen how they exude confidence, even in the accused person who comes before them. They give them time, they give them all the ample time, they ask them questions maturely. I mean, of course, until their representatives or lawyers probably try to, in cross-examination, become petty. But in terms of the Senate, they are extremely mature, and I think the nation as a whole is actually putting their hope in the Senate.
Okay, maybe just to a point of correction, and Wakili, having the hindsight of being in Parliament, is that if you look at the motion, actually the motion can actually be approved by just doing the following. One, the mover moves. He gets a seconder. Now the motion is put to a vote whether it now proceeds to debate. It proceeds to debate. The mover now comes and prosecutes his case. We call the witness, the defendant, who is the Deputy President. He gives his defense, and then we vote, even without talking. That business ends there, even without even a single member taking to the floor to talk.
Contribute.
So that's why I don't want the Wakili Nyaribo to take a lot of pains trying to trying to make a lot of make a lot of digestions how the debate went.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's look at
as per the prosecution. That is how we are supposed to supposed to proceed the case.
Okay.
Now, when it goes to the Senate, that is the prosecution. That is where now the trial happens. Look at even in National Assembly when we are impeaching a CS. When we impeach a CS, immediately the motion passes. Then those charges is taken to an 11-member committee. And that 11-member committee now tries the CS. And if they report that they didn't find the charges we were alleging, they didn't find any ground for impeachment, the case ends there. We don't even go to a discussion. We don't even go to a vote. Okay. So that 11-member committee that impeaches the CS is now taken to the Senate. It becomes that 11-member committee, and what the Senate decides, the story will end there. Whether he will stand in bid or it will save his skin. So I want the Wakili to take a lot of his observations, a lot of his remarks to the Senate. Yes. Yeah.
Let's look then at, speaking of stories, before you come back, let's look at, the two stories here. There is, first of all, the blow for Gachagua. We did see what happened in the, in the courts yesterday. Let's take a look and listen at what happened, and then we'll come back and, discuss that on matters the blow for DP Gachagua yesterday at the courts. There is also, the other issue that we've seen, especially on the matters, the impeachment, which is the topic of discussion this morning on State of the Nation. But also, Nyaribo, when you look at even at, the commentaries coming from close allies of the president, whereas the president has maintained his calm and his silence, what do you make of, cabinet secretaries coming out to proclaim and pronounce themselves, whereas they are former legislators and politicians? What does this speak about, the discussions happening in the inner sanctum of, the presidency, as it were?
Really, the Constitution bars the, civil servants and ministers and all that from necessarily taking sides in the matters of this nature, political and all that. And of course, they've got to respect their appointing authorities, as it were, and Rigathi Gachagua and His Excellency the President are the appointing authorities of these ministers, and they must be very careful how they postulate or come out and try to say something about what is going on, whether it's right or wrong. They can, of course, come up and say, really, the heat is too much on us. We are being affected. We are not able to deliver service correctly because of the heat. But beyond that, to try to suggest that maybe one person is being fair and another one is unfair would actually be against the law. But what does it mean when you hear even ministers, even cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries are affected? It actually means, Maringa, that this is a very, very, very trying moment for the country. It means that we have taken the country into complete political trading and business rather than emphasizing on governance so that people can get services. So everything today is all about impeachment. In fact, from the first page to the last page, whether you talk about business, you talk about sports, there must be an element of who is this being nominated or elected? Is he on this side or the other side? And I think these schisms and these divisions have been orchestrated more by politicians trying to take positioning for 2027 rather than offering a service to the people. Yes. Okay.
Mashima, what do you make of that? Your cabinet officials, cabinet secretaries, making pronouncements on such a weighty issue.
I think I tend to agree with Wakili that my advice to cabinet secretaries, they should actually try as much as possible to keep off on this debate on impeachment, because it is not within their domain. They are also within in cabinet, and part of their senior member is being impeached. So let us not untidy the process by casting aspersions on the impeachment process, which you know, if it doesn't go well, chances are it will be a bit murkier. So I think decency dictates that the CSS keep off from this discussion. And I think their plate is full in their ministries. They should actually concentrate in serving Kenyans and to make sure that at least the agenda for the president is actually fast-tracked, because we are nearing the next election cycle, and so many things have not been done. So I would advise the CSS to actually chill and leave Parliament and the body that has been enshrined in the Constitution to take it up.
Yeah. Let's look at the story here on an ally of the Deputy President who spilled some beans before we come back to this conversation.
In what appears to be a damning affidavit, Peterson Njomo Mushira, an ally of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, has detailed how Olive Gardens Hotel, one of the properties in question, was acquired. Mushira, claiming to have personal knowledge of facts relating to the sale of the Olive Gardens Hotel, which initially formed part of the estate of the late Nderitu Gachagua.
Olive Gardens is said to have been sold to one gentleman that many of us know, the Honorable Gishimu Givenji, the member for Gishugu, will tell you that the gentleman who is listed here as a purchaser for value for Olive Gardens, one Peterson Njomo Mushira, was a candidate in Gishugu constituency. He is a direct proxy of one Rigathi Geoffrey Gachagua.
He says that on or around 31st March 2023, the Deputy President approached and convinced him to purchase the Olive Garden Hotel, which was, at that time, part of the estate of the late Nderitu Gachagua. In the agreement, Mushira says that the Deputy President persuaded him to enter into an informal secret arrangement regarding the transaction embodied in the agreement. The terms of the secret arrangement were that the Deputy President would buy the hotel from him by refunding the purchase price of 412 million Kenya shillings set out in the agreement. In the affidavit, he says that the Deputy President would instruct and pay a contractor to renew DP as a signatory and agent for the purposes of the operation of the hotel's account. He says he decided to swear this affidavit after his attention was drawn to the contradictions between the contents of part of the response by the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua filed at the National Assembly and the remarks made by Honorable Enkomas Mwenge Motuse, who is the mover of the motion, as well as remarks made by Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah and other members of the National Assembly.
And I am sorry to my friend Peterson because I know him. I just called him this afternoon when I saw this document. And I asked him whether TM Civil Engineering Limited is his company, and he confirmed to me it is indeed his company.
In his defense, DP Gachagua said that the hotel was owned by his late brother, Nderitu Gachagua, and was part of his will.
I therefore want to tell you Olive Gardens was purchased through the proxy of Peterson Njomo Mushira with 0 shares and TM Civil Engineering Limited with 6,000 shares. Those who have visited the Annex House, the Office of the Deputy President, know this Njomo is a permanent fixture in the office of the Deputy President, and therefore his direct proxy.
The truth is that Olive Garden Hotel used to belong to my deceased brother, the late Honorable James Nderitu Gachagua, and therefore has never been my property. This is information that most of you may be aware, as it is in public domain.
Sources indicate that the family of the late Nderitu Gachagua might also appear as witnesses in the case. Joash Onsare, TV 47, Nairobi.
Okay, let me pick your mind first before I come to Mheshimiwa. From the evidence perspective, from the legal perspective, when family is drawn in, when past private matters of what the Deputy President has alluded to be the source of his wealth, what do you make of this when it comes to the floor of the Senate and the implication it would even have in this family unit and his moving forward?
I think it's unfortunate. That's the truth. It's unfortunate if these matters were to be debated and proved in the Senate. That also will form part of the downfall of the Deputy President, that I agree. I can see Mheshimiwa nodding and happy. But the truth is, you analyze an issue as it is, and there's no need to take sides in law. It is law, it is law. But there is an issue here, Maringa, you must look at. The affidavit is sworn by somebody, James.
Yes.
Whoever, Njomo, eh?
Yeah, Njomo, yes.
And I see Honorable Ichung was saying that Njomo is a permanent fixture at the Deputy President's office, Annex House. And he's also alleging that he is saying he bought the property on behalf of
the DP,
the Deputy President. Now, that's where the crux is. And of course, any average litigator will tell you that an affidavit is deponed, and meaning signed by the owner of the affidavit. So clearly that is not the way to link the Deputy President. He must demonstrate the agreement between him and the Deputy President. You can't buy a car, register it in the NTSA as your car, and you say, I bought this because Ishmael made a secret deal with me to buy it. That is totally cheap. I doubt they will spend more time on that. But on the aspect that there's a will and the family of the late brother come in and then challenge the fact that, okay, if you say Olive belongs to our brother, let us look at the benefits. Where are the revenue? Where is the revenue going to? There must be a trail where that money coming from the Olive Gardens is going. So is it being delivered at the widow's accounts or at the trustees' accounts, or it is being delivered to the Deputy President's accounts? Those are the issues. But just swearing an affidavit, and many people come and do these and write all manner of lies and then say there's a private deal, that one will not actually sail through.
Yeah, what do you make of that?
What I'm saying, if that's the bite I'm seeing is true,
yeah,
I think I still go back to my advice that
should resign
for the Deputy President to save his family all this expose. I think the best thing is just to resign.
Okay.
And sometimes everybody has his own dark closet, and not to expose your family so much, especially on what happened for you to have acquired those assets. Okay. The best thing is to resign and sort family issues at family level. Because politics is bad.
It's bad.
And politics can expose you badly.
We will take another story, yeah.
And it doesn't have borders.
Okay.
They can even come into your bedroom. So I think if these exposés are coming out, it can get murkier. So just for him to fight another day, I still give him until noon. He just resigns.
So we'll take another story on the lobbying for Gachagua's replacement. But Ishmael, before we take a look at that story, when you look at the jostling for names, the possible names for replacement, if he's impeached, if he resigns, going with the view of Mheshimiwa here, when you look at that lineup, the possible names, I'm sure you've seen them there, C.S. Kindiki, Anne Waiguru, Gladys Wanga, Irungu Kang'ata, the governor. When you look at those, that list, would it go to inform someone who would fit then the Executive Order number 2 of 2023 that would define what the Deputy President would need to look like?
I think we now learn from history, and I think the names floated do not fit the bill, because what the head of state wants today is a person who can do what Fred Matiang'i did during the former regime, where Fred Matiang'i literally chastised the deputy president then, literally contained him. But Fred then came on air and said, as long as my boss says this, I will do. In fact, that is the type of man William Ruto wants. And I don't see, when you talk about Ichung'wa, you talk about Ndindi Nyoro, you talk all these people, I don't think the president will go for them. 2 eyes beaten, 3 eyes shy. He was beaten in Uhuru's regime, and now he has been beaten by Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. They both come from Mount Kenya. I doubt, in fact, even if the head of state were to pick somebody from that region, he will be doing it begrudgingly. He will not be doing it from his heart. Why? Because he has 2 years to 2027, and he must get everything ready for, you know, that contest in 2027. So he's looking for not docile, but somebody who can deliver, somebody who can work, but more importantly, somebody who can stand behind him unquestionably. And so I don't see that coming from ambitious people like Kimani Ichung'wa. I mean, these are people who, they have their own dreams and they want to craft all machinations in political scene to make sure they go there. So you should be thinking of people like, I mean, they already scared Fred Matiang'i, so he's no longer around even. I don't know whether he's around or elsewhere. But if you look at people like Kalonzo Musyoka, you know, the demeanor, a capability and ability to actually follow. And then there's this gentleman who used to be governor for Laikipia. Derito. Exactly. I mean, these are people who, they've actualized themselves, they've realized their life. They would be ready to stand now behind William Ruto and say, whichever way you go, Your Excellency, niko nyuma yako. Those are the people William Ruto need. And if you go into his mind, those are the people. These are the people you are talking about who have great ambitions of becoming head of state or what. I mean, they cannot help him.
Mheshimiwa, who is the ruling coalition, vouching for?
I think from where I'm sitting and where I'm standing, that domain remains the duty of the president.
Okay.
He will appoint, he will nominate, men and women, or a man and a woman, who believes he can actually move the plan that we had for Kenyans forward and assist them to deliver. Let us not second case, because I believe by midnight of Thursday, we shall have today's
Wednesday.
Today's Wednesday.
Yes.
By midnight of tomorrow, we shall have the nominee.
You're sure about that?
But Mheshimiwa, you're just being asked whether you may want to be appointed yourself. I mean, I think Maringa, he will pick somebody like Gladys Wanga, for example. You know, people have gone all the way even mentioning the former Prime Minister, but I think the head of state will also look at a deputy who will bring in votes from a region. So, but these Kimbelembele, Kierere people, I doubt anyone will actually feature.
Let's look at the names.
Murang'a Governor Irungu Kang'ata met leaders from Kisii and Nyanza in attempt to seek their support in replacing Gachagua if he will be impeached by Senate. The leaders, led by National Assembly Majority Whip Silvana Sosoro, described him as hardworking and focused leader who has risen from a councillor to governor. Kang'ata says he made good friends during his days at the National Assembly and Senate. Sources say Kang'ata is among those eyeing to replace Gachagua with an eye on his political future.
Senator and to governor. So occasionally, we usually have such kind of meetings with progressive leaders to share with us their experience in leadership, how they've been able to get to this level without a lot of, because it looks so easy. Like, how is it possible for one to become a councillor, then becomes a member of parliament, then becomes a senator, then governor. So we and do very, very well. Because so far, in terms of the ranking, in terms of performance, he stands out. He's among the top 10 governors we have in this country, actually top 5. So this is not really a rare meeting. We usually hold such meetings quite often, but this time round, it coincided with the imaginations of what is happening in the ground. But this is a diverse group. As you can see, it's actually the face of Kenya.
Kangata said to be lobbying leaders from Meru region as well.
When I was in the National Assembly, I created permanent friends. So I just came to see my friends. That's all.
Leaders from Professor Kithure Kindiki's backyard are divided on whether to support him in his quest to be Kenya's second in command. Some of the local leaders from Meru said that they will take nothing short of Kindiki appointment.
We signed on strength that Kindiki is going to be appointed as NDP. But from the time we passed that impeachment, things are not as they were. There is a lot of lobbying from various sectors of societies.
Another latest entrant in the race is Nakuru Governor Susan Kihika, who is serving her first term as governor, now joining a list of female governors who are said to be eyeing the seat. Others are Anne Waiguru of Kirinyaga and Cecily Mbarire of Embu, who also is serving as the ruling party's chairperson. Mbarire is banking on a clean record.
You have seen an impeachment motion against a cabinet secretary, and you saw how it went. You have now seen an impeachment motion against the deputy president. You've seen how it went in the National Assembly. And you will see in both instances the merits of each case and the issues that were looked into before the vote. Therefore, impeachment is a process provided for in our constitution to ensure that there is accountability in government. And that, as I've said, it is accountability from the bottom to the top or from the bottom downwards. From the president, deputy president, cabinet secretaries, all the way to officers like my DCC here.
President William Ruto has maintained a loud silence in deputy's impeachment bid. Elizabeth Motuko, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for that. So do these names fit your bill very briefly before we move?
Yeah, okay. I still insist, don't want to jump the gun. By tomorrow midnight, we shall have the name.
We shall have the name.
And then it will come to National Assembly, and we shall do justice to the name so that at least from where I'm sitting, the deputy president is a very important component in our constitution, and you know where it lays. So that issue should be sorted as soon as possible.
Ishmael?
You see, you can see he's a member of parliament, and they are so sure that tomorrow in the night, they could be shocked that the Senate has actually put a hold to this development. But anyway, assuming that, okay, because there's an impeachment and it is so choreographed and pre-planned, I think that the governor is good. I mean, it's not in any way, and he has come to meet the people from my county. I think that's fair enough. There is nothing like jumping the gun, Maringa. It is good actually to show that the people of Western Kenya were promised the deputy presidency. They were promised, you can see he put Mudavadi as prime cabinet secretary. So all these names are correct, but I think the list is not exhaustive because the reason why Prime Minister Raila Odinga did a handshake with William Ruto is so that they can share the government. And I think that is also part of the reasons why Deputy President is having this problem. So I don't think William Ruto will ignore totally the possibility of bringing up Gladys Wanga and any other person from Nyanza from actually being nominated.
Having seen, as you say,
it's in the basket.
Twice beaten, thrice shy. And you look at that executive order. I had even asked Meshima earlier on. It was by the executive order of 2023. Did the president, in a way, try to communicate and say, okay, so I may not be able to tell you what not to do politically, but on paper, this is what you need to do by this executive order, even with the 8 functions that he set out? Ishmael.
Yeah, you see, that is where actually animosity started building up. And the reason why the head of state gave that executive order was to place Musalia Mudavadi in such a very critical position. And immediately after that, you could see that while he has a deputy president on his right, Musalia Mudavadi was on the left. So it was clear that this is the direction I want to go. So this impeachment is not any big surprise. Okay. I'm surprised that the Mount Kenya, with all that big mountain, were not able to read earlier that the die is cast.
The die is cast. The issue that also continues to be another, thorn in the flesh is the issue of Adani in this country. Mheshimiwa, what do you make of this Adani issue and, Raila Odinga, the former Prime Minister, coming to talk about it, in a way cleansing the deal? Is it something that Kenyans should celebrate?
I think before I go into the Adani, I dwelt on why we need a PPP arrangement. You realize our basket is getting thin every day. The taxes compared to the debts that we are paying, we are no longer being able to develop critical infrastructure as a country. That's why if you look at what we need, for example, in the airport, what we need on the issues of power, you realize a big investment that looking at the space, at the financial space that we currently have, it becomes untenable. So that is why the PPP comes in. The PPP is just like the expressway. You can see how it has been able to sort people who are in area, especially to get to airport and to get to their destination. So it can really assist a lot. So in terms of the necessity that do we need to look at the PPP in terms of sorting huge infrastructural investment in Kenya? The answer is yes. Now, now to the process and who does it, I think it is guided. We have passed, as Parliament, we have passed quite a number of legislations to guide on that, and between private-public partnerships. So I believe so long as the law is followed and all the stakeholders are engaged, then it is the right way to proceed.
Ishmael,
and that is actually exactly the problem in terms of if the law is followed, because the law was not followed in Adani's case. We were surprised the former Prime Minister actually sort of endorsed them. Not fully. He said, if you have any political issues with them, put them aside, but they are a reputable company. And I don't think, for us as a public, we are not worried about the reputation they have. We are more worried about, is the local law, like the MP saying there is a Public-Private Participation Act. Was it followed? It is the one that institutionalizes the, the public-private participation. It is the one that spells out at what are the entities you can actually privately, procure. And then there's a procurement law. Procurement law allows you to follow the law in terms of anything that will touch on public money and public property. So was that followed? The answer is clearly no, Maringa. So how then did Adani just find a deal to run the power lines, to run the airport, without people being involved? And especially stakeholders, agreeing, and then the public to know in time. This is what the people are asking. And how is the deal going to affect the people? Anything that changes the lifestyles of the people or affect the way they live must be subjected to their involvement in terms of public participation. So as long as these, by the way, and you should appreciate the fact that there is no permanency in these agreements. Another regime coming in can actually totally rubbish this kind of arrangement and say it was not properly done. And the person to lose will be Adani. That is why you see, when many foreign companies, many international groups come to this country, they do their business very quickly and they pick up their profits because they are aware that the methods they have used to take control of that kind of deal is not correct. So they have to very quickly mine profits and from poor Kenyans, and then finally run away. And when they run away, you can now not follow them, even if you cancel the deal, they have made their profits. And this actually should be looked into, especially by stakeholders. Adani is not an issue. The issue is, has the law been followed? And the law in this case has not been followed. The public has not been informed, they have not been involved, and yet all these things are actually going to directly affect them.
I think maybe just to say is that there is no way you can actually enter a deal in terms of at this time if you don't follow the law. So I still believe that especially if you look at the Adani, the airport issue, it is still premature because the processes are still ongoing. So even those things that Wakili is saying that they have not been followed, it will be followed because it is still a process. In terms of the Kentraco, you all know the kind of blackouts we have been facing, the kind of infrastructure that we require to sort all those blackouts is huge. It's around 97 billion. Even getting money right now in the current physical space for purposes of even last mile in our villages has become a tall order. So any investor through PPP who can be able to save us to save that physical space is invited, and Parliament as the watchdog for the people of Kenya will make sure that any issue, any gray issue will be investigated, and the public will know whether actually all the processes were followed. So let us not jump. In Kenya we like jumping to an issue that is still in process. Let the same way we are saying that in terms of the same way the court is saying that the process of impeachment has to be done, has to pass through the Senate before they can be able to listen to it. It is very important that every process, whether it is PPP, we leave it to go through the normal process, and then whenever we realize that there is anywhere that the law has not been followed, then we have Parliament and we have the other bodies that are given that mandate to be able to make sure that the law is followed.
Let's look at the intrigues of this Adani deal in a story that you prepackaged.
Questions regarding the management of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport JKIA by Adani in Kenya continues to arouse different emotions as the Adani Airport Holdings Limited finalizes some of the process required before it takes control of the airport for the next 30 years. Among the key questions, according to Embakasi West MP Mark Mwenje, is regarding how Adani will make Kenya Airways become profitable.
Does the proposal by Adani, does it favor KQ, or do we now risk bringing airlines from India and Asia that will now completely kill our national carrier, and therefore the KQ will cease to disappear?
In response to this, the Ministry of Transport says Kenya Airways will be protected effectively, and this will make the airline more competitive.
And it is important to be protective of Kenya Airways because we are a small airline in the scheme of things, and sometimes people find Nairobi very attractive, so they do what is called capacity dumping. They send as many frequencies as possible, and it completely consumes us. So the PS and the ministry have been working hard to help us in that regard. That is what some of these countries did. They protect their airline effectively.
This as the government says it has no intention of nationalizing Kenya Airways as recommended by Parliament. Principal Secretary for Transport Mohamed Dagar has also confirmed that the ministry received a privately initiated proposal from Adani in March this year and went through the requisite process and evaluation as per the PPP Act, but there was no project agreement that was signed. The government argues that if Kenya was to take control of the JKIA and refurbish it, then it might take about 50 years. On Sunday, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga disclosed that Adani Group's interest in investing in Kenya dates back to 2010, but was subdued by the absence of the proper legal framework for public-private partnerships PPP. Paul Kirobi, TV47, Nairobi.
Gentlemen, let's simmer on that deal and then we take a break. When we come back, the conversation on State of the Nation continues.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwa watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe, State of the Nation, with my guests, David Kiplagat, Member of Parliament, Soy Constituency, and Ishmael Nyeribo, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. There is, the issue of the Adani deal, as you are seeing it. So you're confident that as the National Assembly, you'll defend the interests of Kenya?
Of course, that is our job. And we shall defend it to the letter. And anything that has been brought to our attention, we, like right now, if you look at the airport, the concerned committee, the Committee of Transport, and also PIC is looking at it. So that they ensure that at least it conforms to the law. The issue of Kentraco is being looked at by the Energy Committee and also the corresponding PIC for commercial and commercial and energy. They are looking at it. So we are, as people's representative, as people's watchdog, I think Parliament will do its job. What is important that we all agree as Kenyans is that for us to be able to implement critical infrastructure that requires a lot of physical space to implement, the only other remaining path is the PPP. The only thing we are saying is that PPP should be within the legislative framework that has been proposed and passed by Parliament.
Okay. Ishmael, are there any bottlenecks or legal issues that Kenyans should be worried about or should look out for?
You see, well, Honorable Soy says they are protecting us in Parliament. I have tremendous respect and trust in Mheshimiwa's approach, but in public domain, we've seen that they did not represent us in the finance bill, and we had protests as a whole country to shelve it. And then you've seen that the Adani deal started in March 2024. In fact, it was privately sneaked into the executive, and they decided to consider it. And what I'm telling you today, Kenyans are so extremely informed that they ought to be given their chance to assess an issue. So the question of saying it has gone to the commission committee or that those institutions are correct, but Kenyans want to know that the country is planning to do ABC and it will affect your life. Would you be for or against? And that, after that vote, the public participation aspect is passed, then you can now start, but you cannot take everything through the institutions, commission, committee, energy committee, what? And then now you say, now we will now bring it to the people and show them the complete product and then ask them if they like it. I think that is really turning the values and roles. We should first be asked as a country, are we interested? Because it is going to affect here, it will affect there. Are you interested or you're not interested? So in my view, the Adani deal should be subjected to proper public participation before actually it can be released to the people.
So when we look at then the opposition, as it were, shifting gears, do we still have an opposition, Mheshimiwa? ODM says it is still in opposition. Kalonzo Musyoka has come out to be the de facto opposition leader. Do we have an opposition in this country?
I think the idea of opposition is Parliament is the people's watchdog, and the way our constitution is designed is that Parliament actually should watch over the excesses of the executive. And I think there is no fear whether we have opposition or not. At least we have Parliament, which actually where all the issues in terms of oversight is done. So I believe, sometimes let us tell ourselves the truth. Parties are formed to form government. No party is formed to form opposition. And I doubt whether it is within their framework or within their policy to be in the opposition. So any chance that any party gets to get into government, they will run very fast. Even Kalonzo given a chance, I can assure you, he won't even think twice. So that is the nature of our politics. No party is formed to be in opposition. So that is where it is.
And that clearly means we are on our own. That is the truth. The truth is Kenya now, government is...
Of course we have Parliament, so we are
government is cutting its own deals, Parliament is cutting deals with the executive, so we are on our own. And that's why we are very worried when Raila Odinga actually went into the handshake. We are now on our own. No one is there to help us. How strong is Kalonzo Musyoka really to take on the government and make sure that the people's interests are protected? So we are on our own. And this is why we say, Maringa, that when you are elected by the people, have them in your hearts. When people come...
For us to be able to... We have tried this 2010 constitution. It has pitfalls. It has opposition that always tries to join the government. Let us try to amend the constitution so that it suits our behavior as Kenyans, so that we form official opposition leader who gets into an office, who gets to Parliament, so that they can be able to oversight the government very well. Let us form this prime minister that we have been scouting left, right, and center. Let us look at these issues of the deputy president. Let us look at these issues of election of the presidents, of presidency, so that all these issues we now model into our custom, into our tradition as Kenya. Let us, we borrowed heavily on the constitution from the West, the constitution from America. We were not America. We are Kenyans, and Kenyans is our business. Let us amend, and I dare say that let us push for the amendment of this 2010 constitution before we go to the next poll.
So they actually want to extend the president's term.
It's actually where I want to come in.
And I'm telling you, we are on our own. I mean, they all agree.
Basically, I'm not supporting the extension of the presidential term, but in Kenya you have seen, for 2 years you don't work. You just get disturbed left, right, and center. So within your 5 years, 2 years usually goes into this business of trying to form a government, to stabilize a government. So whoever is thinking about it, I think it is not very far. Looking at the 5 years you have been given and then 2 years you have just wasted, then...
so you can see he's actually supporting the 7-year term.
Not supporting, but this is Kenya, and the way Kenya is designed is that you wasted 2 years trying to fit into a constitution that is not ours. It came from the West.
It came from
this constitution is not ours. This one we are using 2010.
It's okay. So why did we then adopt it,
Maringa, I'm telling you, we are on our own.
We just brought some experts. Now they are messing us. When we do elections, we nearly fight ourselves trying to get what is 50+1.
Then what would be
after election, we fight ourselves for years, left, right, and center for opposition to get into government. After that, now 2 years down the line, you start now governing.
So Maringa, the biggest issue is we are not willing to be patient. We are not willing to tame our appetites. The 2010 constitution was a very good product from 2010 to date. If we wish to amend it, and this document was actually crafted by locals, there was of course borrowing from international experts. That is okay. That's the way things work. You cannot say that I have to go to Nyamira and stay there and do things the way it is done in Nyamira, and I don't want to know everything else from the... yes, of course there was borrowing from the West, but it is our constitution. The biggest challenge for this constitution has been leadership not willing to implement it. Now, tell me something. Members of Parliament today agree on everything, but they cannot agree on two-thirds gender law, isn't it? They cannot implement it. Imagine, and they agree, all of them.
It's a question.
Exactly.
Within our DNA. Why should you force people to elect women? Let people elect men and women who can be able to deliver.
So Maringa, that is the point. So my point, Honorable, I agree entirely, but my point is then that it is us. It is not the constitution from Wisconsin or Chicago. This is our constitution in this country.
Where in this world have you ever seen a constitution that says you need to elect women?
But
even in America, you don't even have such a thing.
But isn't this what the government, the UDA government said that you would promote?
I'm talking now as member of Parliament for Soy, as Kiplagat.
Okay.
I don't see why you can force people to elect a certain gender to represent them. Let us have universal suffrage. Let people go and campaign. If you are elected as a woman, well and fine. If you are elected as a man, well and fine. But let us not go into some boxes of creating offices for some civil society women who are in this Nairobi just to feel. And when you go and tell Mama Mboga, are you feeling the 2,000 women we have given it?
Maringa, I have no problem with the views of the honorable member, but at least I'm here, and I've got also to be heard. Let me tell you, emancipation of women has not started in Kenya or in Africa. This is happening in India. This happens in Brazil. This has happened in the United States. And it is happening in the European countries. And the proposal to increase more protection of women is not because they are being projected as flower human beings, but it's because we have a history of them being suppressed for the longest period. And therefore, the intention of civilized nations is to try to bring up everybody to an equal level, to equal setting. Because Honorable Soy makes decisions in the House, will make decisions at church, will make decisions in the National Assembly. And the women don't have as much power. So, I mean, I'm not a gender expert, but the truth of the matter, I just wanted to highlight the fact that these are the members of parliament who have been entrusted with our constitution, and they don't believe in it. They actually say, this document is coming from Chicago, and we don't believe in why are you forcing people to elect women? I mean, so this, I'm just showing you that we are on our own. These are the members of parliament. And they in fact, you are telling a pastor, it is like telling a pastor to go to the podium. He's opening the Bible he doesn't believe in. And he's actually telling you, and Jesus said, no, you cannot preach wine and you cannot preach preach water and take and drink wine. Right. So let us be clear on this, Maringa, that the members of parliament have their own agenda. The executive have their own agenda. This country, we are on our own. If you talk about implementing the provisions of the constitution, they are not ready. In fact, they don't believe in it. First and foremost, they don't believe in it. This is confirmed. So I think what we need to do going forward is citizens know they are on their own. And when they are electing leaders, kindly let Kenyans be sure, let it be so clear that you appoint leaders who can trust the constitution, implement the constitution in the way in which it is. And then if you are not satisfied with the way it is, then now when you do the amendments, now come up and say, now much as we have been implementing this, no, we feel it is hurting us as a country, let us now amend it. But you cannot just, totally disbelieve in governance document that is for the country, and they still say that, okay, I still want to be elected so that now I can go and tell colleagues in the village and in parliament that it is wrong to allow maybe, let's say, women in this case to lead. It is really unacceptable.
I think nobody has denied women to lead. What we are just saying is that let them contest for elective seats. If they are elected, well and good. If they are not elected, well and good. But we should not try to create some positions that is so opaque or now it is being filled, say that only women who are in this Nairobi who can knock into offices are the ones who go there, and they are completely distanced from the mamamboga at the village. That's what we are saying. Let us, these seats that are just for donations, we make sure that the wage bill is so high. And what I'm just saying, sometimes let us not bury our heads in the sand. Okay. We have seen after the 2010 elections, after the 2010 constitution, for every election for the president, it is always at the edge. Both in terms, it is a ceremony to even announce the result. And in fact, for every IEBC chairman, you announce the result for the presentation and that becomes the end of you. You will never be seen again. We have made it so competitive, and then it goes to the Supreme Court, and then it goes where? Why do you have to fight all this? Why don't we say the popular candidate who gets 33% or 22% or whichever, so long as you are number one, you become the president, and we leave all these shenanigans of trying to be +1, and the age is so narrow, we can ban this country. Those are issues that we are saying. And after even the Supreme Court has announced who is the president, the opposition will not want to let it go. They will fight in the streets, they will sponsor agencies, they will do anything to make sure they are in government. So what I'm just saying, let us create a constitution that matches our behavior as Kenyans. And I dare tell Wakili, take this gender issue to public participation. You see whether it will pass. Until now, go and tell people you will elect only women. You will elect only men. You know, some things, they are just an African. So let us not try ourselves. We have tried for 14 years trying to create that two-thirds. It will never happen.
It will never happen.
So,
but even the former CJ, David Maraga, said the parliament should be disbanded for not passing that law.
But because that law is an African, so it...
Yeah, how an African is it? Yeah. So looking then at the events of the day, by Mashujade, which is on Sunday, there will be a lot of razzmatazz that we'll be waiting to see in terms of who shows up at what time, who introduces who. You've said that ideally a deputy president should just take a maximum of 1 minute to introduce the president. So what should we be looking
we are testing on what has worked.
Oh, what has worked.
Yeah, this other idea.
So looking at the ideas of looking at post Friday, post Thursday, after Thursday night, How should...
No, after the impeachment,
yes,
you know this, we shall not leave a lacuna space. In terms of power, you don't leave a lacuna. This country will have number one, will have number two, and will have the cabinet. So I will tell you by, so if the Senate is successful to impeach the deputy president, from there, you will get the deputy president.
How long will it take?
It can take 1 day, it can take 2 days, it can take 3 days.
So
you will get.
What would you expect to be the conduct of the deputy president, in as much as even resolving issues, his or her boss would work?
You know what? You are the principal assistant of your boss.
Okay.
You are the principal assistant of your boss. You know, the constitution is very clear. You are the principal assistant of your boss. Just stay like a principal assistant. That's all. If you just behave like a principal assistant, that's all. Don't say we were elected. Blah, blah, blah.
What if Senate saves him? So how would Gachagua need to behave?
Me, I'm telling you, it's a factor.
Yes.
You are the principal assistant of the president.
Okay.
You are no longer in working terms with your boss. So there is no marriage that can work between the current deputy president and the president. So even without going through the Senate, there is no way this marriage can proceed.
It can be
proceed. Be difficult.
It will be difficult.
You see, Maringa, if you don't like your spouse, you don't have an upper hand in doing like demeaning or doing certain things. He or she is still a human being, isn't it? So if you don't like your deputy, and the constitution allows him to be called a deputy, still he can exist. He doesn't have to.
Of course he can exist.
He doesn't have to be annihilated or crushed. So if the Senate upholds National Assembly decision to impeach Gachagua, then the head of state must nominate a name, which name must be approved by the National Assembly. So it cannot be in a day's, it cannot be a day's venture. By all means, it will take up to 2 weeks to actually finalize all these. So I expect if the National Assembly does not, the Senate does not impeach the deputy president, I expect the deputy president to come to on 20th to the podium and invite the president and say, your head of state, we have come through such a turmoil, such a hard time, but the people of Kenya are together. So could the head of state come and address the nation? You know, it should be normal. This is democratic space. What we are doing, if you want to make Kenyans feel better, it is not a lynch mob against the deputy president. It is an impeachment process, and he may survive it. If he survives it, you should not bring the notion of, oh, you know, how can he now work and he was impeached. He should be given his space as the deputy president. By the way, it is not about Rigathi Gachagua. It's about the people of Kenya. You should also respect us. You should respect the sovereignty of the people. You should have the feeling of the people. If people decide, no, we still like him, irrespective of how he detests or how you feel he's awkward or bad, that must remain to be your problem. The issue should be the people of Kenya will confirm through the Senate today and tomorrow if they want him to stay. And if they want him to stay, he should be given all honor. We should not repeat that thing of you are a head of state coming to the podium and you are ignoring the hand of your deputy. You know, it's not a personal thing. You know, it's about, is the one the people want, is the one that the senator said he has to stay. So you have to toe the line and go as per the dictates of the people. But if you want to use thoracic measures to govern people and feel very strong and feel very dismissive, you know, very sure about yourself and not sure about the country, then you will actually start mistreating a person who has been elected.
Okay, Mheshimiwa, you've said this impeachment did not come from other quarters, it came from the National Assembly itself.
Yeah.
So what is the assurance then that you can give to Kenyans that in another 1 year, 2 years, 6 months, whatever time it is, whoever would ideally replace Gachagua, if impeached, you will not come again and say, we do not want this one?
Of course, you see the article on impeachment are in the Constitution 2010 for it to be used. So if the other one also does things that infringes on the Constitution, nothing stops the National Assembly from performing its duty of impeachment. So an impeachment is to make the executive accountable to make the CSS accountable, to make the president accountable, to make the deputy president accountable. So I cannot tell you that we shall never impeach the deputy president that will come. What we are just telling the deputy president that will come, when he comes, he performs his duties as per the constitution, as per the dictates of law, and he will be okay. But if he now does his own other things, then Parliament will still be there to make sure that at least order is restored.
Order is restored.
Yeah.
You want to contribute to
No, that's okay. I mean, you see, they are now confident Raila joined them. I mean, if Raila didn't join them, they would be smoked out of Parliament. I mean, this is just taking courage after the former Prime Minister has actually gone into their camp and now they have the numbers. Probably if the Prime Minister does not go to the African Union and probably Rigathi Gachagua is impeached, probably the political dynamics could change. And by the way, in Kenya, there's nothing new. I mean, there's nothing unique. There's nothing impossible. Raila Odinga might change again the political landscape, and you might find him again teaming up with a different coalition. So let nobody be too sure about punishing Rigathi Gachagua. It would be the same person who is punishing Gachagua now being punished tomorrow. And by the way, the public has said clearly that these members of Parliament will not go back. I mean, I pray that Soy wins his seat. Yes. But they are all saying that, no, if you have impeached Gachagua, thank you, you will also go home. So it's all about how they are going to handle it. But I think that members of the public are actually keenly observing how you are backstabbing your brother now, and the members of public are likely to backstab you too.
Yeah, as we enter the home stretch to wind up, Mheshimiwa, the president has, maintained a loud silence on this matter. There is, of course, he has undertaken social media to speak of his duties. Looking at the future of the constitution of the presidency, a president and his deputy, what would be then the mechanisms before we even get to an impeachment like this for the president and his deputy to agree and say, okay, fine, we may disagree on this one, but you don't have to go, it may not necessarily go the impeachment way?
No, I think the only way we can secure the future good working relationship between the president and the deputy is to actually amend our constitution so that we remove this the way the appointment of deputy president is done, and we just appoint them with the cabinet secretaries. And
but that is going back to the old.
Yeah.
It's exactly what they want, though.
Sometimes you learn from experience, and if you realize where you are now, the car you bought is smoking and things like that, you can remove the one at the garage that wasn't giving you problems.
Do you know that's what Uhuru said, by the way? That unaweza anza safari, ukifikiria mambo itakuwa sawa. And they degraded him. They are like, how can he say like this? I mean, why is he saying like this? So my point really is that it's true, like he says, we keep learning. So if we have learned this much, how do we save the country? Because 2 years, by the way, we are still dealing with who has not gotten his share of what they spent in the campaigns. And this is quite disheartening for the country.
Closing remarks. Speak to Kenyans in a minute, and then we'll end up with Ishmael.
So what I want to tell Kenyans is that the impeachment process is constitutionally provided. It is a way of making sure, as an oversight, making sure that the executive are accountable to Kenyans. And it is just a process. Let us maintain decorum, let us maintain peace, let us maintain law and order, and just see this as a process that is actually maybe not targeted to a community, not targeted to an individual. It is just it's just Parliament playing its oversight role to make sure at least everybody follows the path of constitutionalism. Thank you.
Ishmael?
I just wish to tell Kenyans to not put too much premium on the politicians. Kindly go till your land. Kindly go do your business the usual way. These guys don't think about you so much like you think about yourself. So the most important thing for me is that whether the impeachment goes positive or negative, let Kenyans focus on their business, because this is not really about you. This is about political bickering.
Indeed. What a way to wind up the show. We've been speaking to David Kiplagat, a member of Parliament for Soi constituency, and Ishmael Nyaribo, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya on State of the Nation. My name is George Maringa. After we come back from this commercial break, we continue with the coverage of the impeachment of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. In studio, we will have Kevin Osido, Director of Governance Watch, and Silas Akiro, an advocate of the High Court, to debunk all these things. And to just inform you, the Senate, through its X handle, has posted proposed removal from office of the Deputy President by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua is historic because it is the first under the 2010 Constitution of Kenya. #Senate Live. That coverage continues in just a short while. Remember, the official timeline for this to begin is in the next 30 minutes at 9 a.m. But before then, we will